October the 13th, 2025. What we'd like to do is to have a moment of silence and stand, and then we can have to lead to the flag. In this moment of silence, I'd like for us to remember the happening today of the hostages coming back home, and also the deal for peace through the nation. Second moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. At this time, we'll start from my left, and we'll around and introduce the members.
Jennifer Wild, District 2.
Daniel Brzezinski at large.
Jessica Matthew, District 6. Kelsey Crooks, District 5.
Michael Watson, District 4.
Drew Brooks, District 1.
Next on the agenda, I'd like to make a motion to approval of the minutes for August the 11th, and also September the 8th.
Individually, let's do one at a time.
One at a time? Okay. We'll do one at a time, so you got those handed out.
Yep. Do we have a second?
Yeah, I'll second it for August.
Yeah, let's vote on August. I thought we were gonna.
One quick discussion on the August. Why did we, because I wasn't here last month, why did we not approve them last month?
What was the update on it?
So-
We never received the
I never
minutes.
emailed the
Okay.
minutes out to the planning
Got it.
commissioners. I put them on the website
Got it.
instead of emailing them out.
Just making sure I wasn't missing them.
All those in favor for the August?
Okay, at this time, we'd like to have a motion to approve the minutes for August the 11th.
I have a question regarding Mila. Is it time to ask before the motion or?
After the meeting's been seconded, you can call for discussion.
Thank you, sorry. I'll second. Okay, it does not include that Les Hendricks is the one that made the motion and drafted the wording for the approval. Does it mean that? Let's figure out what we're talking about here. September 8th. And that was for the Azure Road application. Everyone just review. Haydenwood. Yeah. Says, on line 39, Mr. Hendricks, he stated the proposed project complies with all standards of UDSO and exceeds them to benefit future residents. And then it says, line 42, Mr. Brzezinski makes a motion to approve proposed subdivision as presented in August, along with the additional plans presented on 8th. And it was Mr. Hendricks that wrote those additional plans. So do we want to be that specific? I think based on the attorney's email to us, we probably should.
We can make those corrections if that's what the planning commission wants.
And I had a couple some members of the public came to speak and didn't get the opportunity.
So you wanna add that to the minutes as well?
Yeah. And then the last thing that I may have totally misunderstood, but it says in here, on line 36, Mr. Reel and Mr. Hendricks also mentioned that the maintenance of the roads and bridges will be funded by the HOA's capital reserve, and that was not my understanding. My understanding was that they were gonna take that to the county eventually. So, I don't know if I misunderstood what they promised us, because that was not written in the approval.
They can make a request about the roads being taken into the county maintenance system, but Rodney Robinson would have to make that recommendation, and then it would have to be taken up by the county council from
And,
that standpoint. So, you know, unless that happens, the HOA or the, you know, however they fund those roads and that bridge would be up to either the developer or it would be up to the HOA.
okay, so I didn't understand his intent then, because he was pretty clear, I thought, that his intent was not for the HOA to cover it eventually.
Well, I think a lot of the developers that come before the county, have the intention of requesting that the roads be taken into the county maintenance system, but there's a process that goes along with that, and it would have to be recommended by Rodney, which is the county engineer. So, if he doesn't recommend it, because,
So if the county reads this, like, let's say they go to the county and the county reads this, and they can't hold them accountable for it because we misquoted it in the minutes, right?
misquoted it, like, it's in,
Essentially, you want the conversation added that there was discussion about
Yes.
potentially, eventually, maybe asking the county to
Yes.
take in the roads.
That was
Is
their
that-
intention.
Is that something we can just add in there for the sake of clarity?
we can, absolutely.
Okay, cool. Alright. What else we got?
That's all I had.
Is that, or can you go back over that, Sydney, what is being requested?
That Les wrote the motion, mentioned that the speakers came, and they got turned down, and then that they want to eventually, try to get the roads into the county maintenance system.
And we'll go back to the recording and face it off. Okay. So in that regard, how do we proceed with the minutes? Do we just need to deny them?
You can, absolutely, and then, we'll bring them back up at the next regular scheduled meeting.
Okay. Alright, then, do we need to vote on Mr. Watson's motion? Okay.
Right, okay. All those approved, raise your right hand. 8. Is that what we're doing? We're not voting on it?
Yes,
There's-
we are.
There's,
They're just not raising their hand because they're not.
Mr. Watson,
Oh, that's
there's
all.
changes that are being made to the minutes, so they're not going to vote for the approval of the minutes.
Okay,
And so therefore, then we can deny the minutes, make the corrections to the minutes, and then re-present them back to the planning commission.
okay, that's fine.
Okay.
All those in favor of that, I guess you can raise your hand.
So we just need to all against.
Somebody against?
Yeah, that's what we can do, so everybody was in favor, so ask for all those not in
All
favor.
those not in favor, raise your right hand.
I'm gonna abstain.
Missed out on that one.
And today's agenda, on the item, there, any of the, members of addressing the planning commission that are here, wish to address the planning commission, not pertaining to what's on the agenda.
We didn't have anybody sign up for the general discussion.
Okay. Guess we can go direct to the public hearing. Action items at this time. You want to present that out?
Yes, I can. heard from the, planning commission that there was some changes that, the planning commission wanted to have made to the RV parks and campground standards. Staff, revisited those standards and made the corrections, as you will see in the packets that was posted on the, website and was sent through email to the planning commissioners. It was very minor, changes, but it did affect some aspects of the RV parks and campgrounds. So, we have had some additional discussions at other planning commission meetings, making sure that this was what the planning commissioners wanted to see, and that's why it's on the agenda for tonight.
Have a motion to discuss that.
I make a motion to discuss. I'll second that. So to kick us off, I passed around something from a resident with some suggestions of things for the UDSO, and if you turn to the second page, the second to the last block is specifically regarding RV park occupancy and inspection tracking. One of the things that stood out to me as we've talked, I've got extras if anybody else needs them. One of the things that stood out to me as we've talked about RV parks, a specific experience I had was when we had that big chunk of RV parks done. I went and talked to some of our local RV parks, and I even specifically told the owner operator who I was and what I was doing, and he still clearly told me that he had people that had been living in his RV park for 2 and 3 and more years, which I know is in direct defiance of what we have of not being there more than 180 consecutive days. So coming up with ways to ensure compliance with having people not stay more than 180 consecutive days is something that I think there's a very direct need for, because right now we don't have a way to enforce it. So one of the ideas that's on here I really liked, having an on-site occupancy log, recording entry and exit dates, owner info, license plate, etc. Having that kind of information might be more motivation for the owner operator to be moving people along. They know that they have to keep a log, and that means that there is a way for them to be specifically tracked, and if it's, the county can come look at this at any time, that might be a way to motivate our current RV parks and our future RV parks to follow the rules that we have made, because we don't want to be making them for no reason. They need to be followed, so we're taking the time to make them.
We discussed that during the last UDO updates, correct? Just to follow up on it for this, is there anything that I missed in the current standard that reflects call logs or tracking logs, et cetera?
Of the current standards?
Yeah.
No.
No, okay. Was that something that you just want to add? How does everybody else feel about it?
From an administrative perspective, how do we propose to check on it?
Enforcement officers, if we could add that to their list of things. I know that they've got a very long list, and there's only, what, 2 or 4 of them.
There's 2 environmental and 2 code enforcement.
So if it could just be as spontaneous, like if they keep a point of going to one maybe once a month, we only have so many campgrounds.
Basically, I do it as a random check,
Yeah.
Place got checked once every 2 years, so they're like, oh, check,
Because that's administrative information, they should already be reported anyway, for operation purposes. In my opinion, I've never run a campground, but I have been administrative.
We better not have anybody going down on these, inspections,
Inspections.
but it's,
For RV
tracking
camp.
for RV campground.
If we see a violation, we sort of address it as soon as we find out that there's a violation. So, we get calls from a citizen saying that there's, appears to be someone living in an RV. It's part of a pre-existing non-conforming RV park that has been approved, however many years ago. That's another hard part, is knowing when these RV parks were formed, and then making sure that if they were formed within the time frame that we have these standards of 180 days or before. If they were before, then, they would not be subjected to the standards that are in the UDSO.
I thought the 180 days wasn't new, what's the state law?
sure if it's a state law, but it does say in certain sections of the UDSO when the UDSO was amended.
That's correct. Okay, I remember that, yeah.
Don't they have a manager sometimes that's usually there most of the time? Some of these.
They should.
Now they have to, it
So
didn't
I
leave it out.
thought they were supposed to have a manager, so should the deputy manager not try to fill out the form? Can you request that from maybe on site? Because I'm sure they go around and inspect it, make sure things are, up and up. If this is a 2 or 3 year period.
They should. I mean, I don't know how some of the older campgrounds, function, or what they have and what they don't have in some of these older campgrounds, but when we receive citizen complaints, we, forward it to the code enforcement and environmental enforcement agents that we have, and they do a fantastic job of what they do. So they are being addressed if there's, issues that arise.
But it's triggered by a citizen calling. Yeah, there's an old one next to me, dude, I can tell it's old, but they have mailboxes there. I mean, they're just, they have their own mailbox, each RV has their own mailbox, and they just, you can tell that's been their home for a long time, so.
So it's just a consideration, even if the only ends up affecting RV parks that are made moving forward, just knowing how many of them we've had apply this year, a large percentage of applications we've had, it felt worth exploring.
Well, also, I was just thinking, like, if they're not keeping that for law enforcement, I mean, law enforcement, what if there was a shooting or something at one of these RV parks, and these people have no idea who was in the park on that day? Just to have a log, even if no one's checking it, I mean, it should be pretty commonplace to require a business to keep a log of.
Instead of putting it in the county ordinance, we can make that a suggestion to bring before the planning commission when they go, when they apply for, land use approval, and have that part of their, campground management, document that they present to the planning commission.
But then there's no way to enforce it.
We keep those documents, attached to the accounts themselves. So therefore, whenever someone presents documentation for the planning commission for their land use application, we have those on file as well. So if there is an issue that arises, we can always go back into that account and pull up that document and present it to the manager or the park host or whoever is managing that RV park.
Do we currently have a running list for RV parks and things like that?
The planning commission has made suggestions when it comes to, fireplaces and making sure that there's fire extinguishers at fireplaces, and then other aspects of their, what amenities that are gonna,
So that is a currently existing document.
I mean, it is what we recommend to the applicants whenever they come in. They need to have their site management plan that pertains to those topics. Because I think it is in the ordinance.
Yeah.
The ordinance requires them to have a site management plan.
Right.
It's not, the
It's not
details of
it's
the
not
site
detailed.
management plan are pretty light.
Right.
But I think it's probably.
We did that deliberately.
Yeah, and I think it's probably for the same type of reason, like, conceptually, I don't think it's a big problem to ask people to have a log, but if you're trying to tie that into the ordinance, it becomes a lot of document update for something that, realistically, if you incorporate it into their site management plan, that application phase, you're gonna get the result faster. The only reason why I brought up the enforcement thing is because I don't see that process changing too much, you know what I mean? Like, I don't see it changing from somebody basically saying, hey, it seems like that RV's been there for an awfully long time, on the county, get it down, right? So, I mean, maybe we get to a personnel model where we have codes enforcement people with time on their hands and making good inspections. Or maybe we prioritize it if that exists, but it wouldn't be any different. I mean, the law applies today, right? It would not be any different than asking somebody to go in and say, hey, you've had this RV here for how long, right? And the owner would have to say, well, less than 180 days, prove it, right?
start making recommendations, they present that to the planning commission. And also, reach out to code enforcement, environmental enforcement, and see how they can incorporate that into their daily, or like you said, make it a routine of some sort and see how they can handle that aspect of it. I don't wanna put something on the department without,
That's not our
getting more
place.
information from them and having them weigh in on that.
I like that.
I meant to ask you, have Carolina at Camp Cedar?
I haven't heard of that one.
Like, does the county have a list of all of the approved RV parks?
Is that the new one that was supposed to be coming up in?
I don't know, it was so weird, yeah, they said it was new, and they got, it's very strange, and then I would pull up the map, and it is in the, it's within the county, they're not within the city, and people are on there saying, hey, we want long-term rental spaces, and they're on Facebook saying, yeah, we'll get right on that, and I'm like, this is a brand new RV park, it's in the county, I don't think I just had heard of it, I thought maybe y'all approved it.
If you can bring, send us those, we'll reach out.
Yeah, I'll
Do
send
some-
it to you,
Do
'cause
some
I,
investigating and, make sure we make contact with them. There's other RV parks that we're reaching out that have had 2 RV sites, and we're reaching out to them saying that they're, not in compliance with the RV park campground center. So, I hate to be reactionary, but, that's what we're having to be when citizens are contacting us and, saying, hey, there's RV sites on this property, have they been approved, and we don't have any documentation on them, then we send code enforcement out there to address it, and we reach out to them and show them how they can either get into compliance, or that there's no way for them to get in compliance with the current standards that we have today, so.
now, I think they're a part of the Pickens golf course.
Oh, is it that side?
That's been around for a while, and that was probably approved a couple of years ago.
So it was probably approved for a couple years ago, and then they're just now getting it, because the grand opening was this month. But they are talking about making long-term sites,
But they're probably grandfathered in because they're before the UDSO.
with 180 days. Well, I'll send it to you anyway,
It's possible, yeah, send it to me, I'll
you
be
can look at it.
happy to take any information that you guys see. It's,
I got one question on item 8, and this is just really for my knowledge. The requirement to provide restroom and bathing facilities, I'm assuming this excludes state-owned property.
I would think so. I'll have to check on that.
For me again.
So it says that, RV sites of campground that are not otherwise served with sewage disposal, on-site bathhouse provisions, and restroom bathing facility must be provided.
Okay,
Well, Jocassee Gorges is full of primitive campsites that have no facilities.
right.
And those woods are full of bear hunters right now, the deer hunters get ready to move in. But, it's hand dug latrines, it's not, there's nothing here that would comply with.
Correct.
So I just wanna make sure that we weren't causing any friction with
Yeah, so
something.
that would all be grandfathered then, essentially.
I would think so as well, that it would be, how a state park manages their own land
Right.
and stuff like that. Now, this pertains to a lot of commercial and citizens wanting to create an RV park on their property. But I'll definitely look more into that as well, just to make sure I'm giving you guys the correct information and check on that.
Alright, so how do we implement the call log into your application operations? Do we need to vote on that, or is that just something?
I think the application process is a internal document from the planning staff.
So you just add it without us having to.
As far as I know, that is correct. We could add that into the application process.
And then just send an email to codes enforcement saying, hey, this is a way that might make some enforcement easier for you guys to know that it would be quick and easy to just show up and say, hey, can you see your log?
Right.
So the goal there would be to let them know that this should be something to help them.
And I'll see if that is the case, if the application process does change, will it change the UDSO as well? Give me some time to do some digging on that and see how affecting our application process would what I'm thinking too, so I think it'd be a simple fix of adding that in there.
Yeah. Does anybody else have anything they wanna discuss about RVs and campgrounds?
So we're treating these as two separate items on here. That's the RV parks and campground standards and then the definition of.
And then we are definitely voting on the lodging establishment thing too, in number one, is that what we're approving to send to council?
So the, definitions, on the
Oh, it's
second
even
one.
in the second one?
Yes,
Okay.
that is correct.
The language changes on the RV.
And campground.
Motion to approve the amendments and transmit to council.
All those in favor?
Good job. That took like what, 3 or 4 months? Nice. Moving along.
Yeah, shining solar farm. Yeah, shining solar.
All right, you can pull that up in the packet as well, just so that. There's a lot of scrolling. I didn't realize that this document was as large as it was as I printed it out. So here's the definition that we have for campgrounds. That's in the general, law section of the UDSO, just defining campgrounds.
Yeah, I like that language too. That was great.
You want me to move down, or would you guys like to discuss on this?
The one line, primary purpose of campground is offer temporary outdoor living accommodations, recreational or usage. Why do we put for compensation in there?
Because it's a commercial.
Just to indicate that it's commercial. So this would be. It's the value and reasons that we, other than the fact that we have external experiences. So somebody just wanted to have.
For a campground.
Yeah, I don't know, I don't.
I don't think it's out of the question or uncommon for people to have multiple campers on a piece of property for a weekend or a group to get together. And I think this differentiates those items.
I mean, all the requests that we've ever received was for people that wanted some passive income coming in, that they could set up some RV sites and campground sites and make a profit off of it. That's how we distinguish commercial and, you know, a
What are you
resident.
worried about, Trip? Like a homeless encampment or something?
I'm just worried about the idea, I mean, I don't even know that, so the purpose being commercial in nature, like, I don't even know if we have to limit it that way. Do we? Required to say for compensation, I mean, we just did it without that, do we get any value out of it?
I mean, it's, with the compensation put in there, if someone had 2 RVs on their property, they weren't using them as campsites, but they were just, you know, using them on their primary residence. You know, that's in the definition of RV parks and campgrounds, that is 2 RV sites on one parcel, which would constitute an RV park. But they're not getting compensated for it because that's their RVs, you know? They're not hooked up, they're just sitting out there and maybe,
Those aren't recreational, religious, educational, vacation, or that like their storage.
it's true.
I mean, I'm not like, this is not the hill I'm jumping at, I just don't, I don't understand why we need to be, I don't understand why we would need to limit it, I mean, for me, the use is the use, right, whether it's commercial or otherwise, it always seems when you go into the regulation side of things, that people, well, you know, I'm not really
whole plot of land for a homeless encampment, and his argument is it's my land, I'm not taking any money, this isn't a business. But it's a massive homeless encampment, and the county is trying to get it, all those people moved off there, suing him. So that's the only thing I can think of that might pose a problem.
I mean, yeah, the less distinct you have to be with the language, as long, like, if it needed to be in there for enforcement purposes or for other, like, if we were trying to clarify specific situations, I would say, yeah, okay, great. I guess I just look at it and say, I don't know if he did, right, in order to get the use definitions in there. But,
So just remove for compensation, is that your suggestion?
I would think so, yeah, I mean, it would.
I would only offer this, that I know of 4 times in Pickens County during the year that there will be 15 RVs on a Jones pasture for Friday, Saturday, and leave Sunday. No compensation. It's a bunch of people that get together to eat, pray, and play music together. If someone comes up and tells that guy, hey, you're gonna have to make this a campground, this and that, and other thing, that's not gonna fare well.
I also know that happens, so my brother's an Eagle Scout growing up, they would have certain farms that would host them for their jubilees and things, so there would be several times in the year where they would just have piles of scouts. They didn't charge, they were like, you're a medical pasture, use it to set up everything you need to have scouting weekend. That's another example of something like that, having no charge, just here, use my field.
And those are self-contained as well, they're not hooked up to sewer,
That's correct.
electric,
Yeah.
water, or anything like that. I mean, this is completely up to you guys, staff is.
I just wanna make sure everybody knows that's a real thing.
Yeah.
There's two sides to every point.
Always.
And so, the compensation sort of helps with the, the commercial aspect of an RV park and campground. That's one of the reasons why it just fit, we didn't really go into deep dive thinking like, you guys are at this point in time on that particular verbiage, but.
But wouldn't something like that have like an event permit anyway, that was just like temporary?
We don't have.
Okay. So
Now, if it's a private event, it's not, this isn't something that's open to the public, this isn't something that's advertised, this isn't something that's put in. They don't want you to know they're there because they want to keep it private.
yeah.
I mean, it could be, but it could become our problem.
Yeah, I mean, it could become, I guess, the county problem, I don't know.
Well, I mean, if it further this discussion, I'm willing to drop it, I just was curious if there was actual intent there, or if it was as simple as being essentially trying to say this is a commercial.
I think staff was just trying to come up with a definition that would describe campgrounds sort of in general and the purpose of them within the county. And that is to make it, to be a commercial entity where it is for compensation. That's all that we've really ever seen or even permitted was for that definition right there.
I mean, I don't think somebody that's hosting their friends or their congregation or their Eagle Scouts is gonna come here and say, yeah, I'm gonna start a campground.
Exactly.
They're
It's not
gonna do their
technically a
weekend.
campground because they don't have RV sites.
Yeah, this thing goes back into hay production on Monday. And that's what the property's used for.
Yeah, that's, I mean, that's more like an event.
I'm fine, leaving the wording as is for now. In the event that we're wrong, then I guess we feel good then. Okay, so, move on.
What's the next one?
Okay. Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
Let's see. Okay.
All right, so next that we have on our list is commercial lodging establishment.
What page is that?
Page 16, 16-9. Have that way. On the PDF, 16.
Got it, thank you.
You're welcome.
Trevor, you explain the third item to me and what the intent there is.
So, dormitories, fraternities and sororities associated with a school or, so even if those are still classified under commercial lodging establishments. So if someone wanted to put, any one of those, they would have to get, land use approval, from my understanding as well. We were defining this and then also adding the commercial lodging as a Article 12. So that
You're just saying that dorms, frats, sororities are not
They're
just
excluded.
associated with the commercial lodging establishment.
Oh,
Still
it's not
have to have
included, yes, I'm sorry, it's not included, my bad,
Okay.
these terms do not include those types of, sorry, read the whole thing. Because it's like someone's, home that they buy for commercial use and stuff like that, we don't regulate those as well, because those are not short-term rentals.
Right.
Putting long-term.
But this won't allow someone to build an apartment complex and say, oh, I'm part of the university, which that's who they're renting to, but then they're excluded from.
Yeah, what makes,
Does that make sense?
It does.
And that's my confusion, not how it's written, I'm just trying to understand.
I didn't even think about that aspect of it.
So you're saying if an apartment developer came and said, no, I'm building a dorm,
Right. That's my question.
you know,
I'm not saying that's what's gonna happen, I'm
Well,
just trying to understand the definition.
I hear you, yeah.
I remember, it's been a long time, but there was, around Clemson and some of the other areas over that way, where some people had their, rented rooms, for students to live in their house. Is that still something that's going on? Have you heard anything that is still going on?
Yes.
So it never got, one point five, they were trying to get that out.
People rent the rooms in their houses out there.
That's why there's so many other buildings.
I mean, that's something that
That's something that's still going on.
that could be, handled or addressed by municipalities, like Clemson University is, within Clemson City as well. And that could be a topic of, I can reach out to Clemson and see if there's any information that they can provide on that. But to my knowledge, I think that still happens. I mean, I don't know how you
Well,
regulate
some
that.
of them like even.
It is regulated, and
Some of
most of
them,
them have, so like Central, for example, has ordinance that prohibits four or more occupants of the same dwelling without common, ancestry or something, I can't remember. So it's basically for student housing, and stuff like that. So it's really more geared toward number of occupants,
yeah,
right?
yeah, that's what I'm saying, because I had, some of them was actually in Willowbrook.
But it's also, that's also an enforcement problem.
Yeah.
You can't,
You don't know, unless if you gotta do something else, cities other people do, understand?
so what do you want, what do you suggest? Daniel? Are you just trying to understand
Yeah, I
it,
don't
or
have
is there, or do you have a problem with it being on here?
No, I'm just trying to understand what, wording.
what was it, why exclude them? Just because of what you're saying as far as like
It's normally associated with the university or the cities more so, because it's closer and, has the infrastructure for those aspects of it. We don't really see them coming into the county, so to speak. And I think when we were doing our research, some other places actually mentioned, excluding those as well, so we just incorporate those into our.
I was gonna ask, do you remember what county you pulled the language from?
I do not know for this particular window, I do not, but I can, send you guys our data on that.
Cause if it was a county close to us, there's probably a reason they did it too.
I think we did a broad search.
Okay.
Because like I said, we were really trying to take the verbiage that the planning commission gave us when it came to hotels, motels, and resorts, and try to come up with a all-inclusive standard, and this is what we came up with. And when you sort of do that, you sort of start diving into other aspects of commercial general lodging establishments.
So if someone wanted to do a dorm, how would they, let's just say it happened, or a frat house, what would you all tell them to do?
I think we would treat that as residential as well, because most not dorms, but fraternities and sororities are in residential houses in some ways. And we've never dealt with that from the planning aspect either, so.
Yeah, could you have the word here, temporary sleeping accommodation?
So, something that also helps is getting an idea of these short-term accommodation facilities and making sure that our Parks, Recreation, Tourism Division gets a record of the short-term use for accommodation taxes as well.
Yeah, that's what I mentioned last time. Make sure that they come in.
I think they have been doing a fantastic job of implementing new technology, tracking down Airbnbs, Vrbo, and a lot of other short-term rental. And so those are already being addressed in giant leaps from their department. But having hotels, motels, and resorts coming to the planning commission, this sort of encompass all of those and many more.
Yeah, no, I'm good. I don't think it's gonna, I don't honestly think we're gonna see enough of them for it to make a difference one way or the other. It's a good point.
Yes, thank you for bringing it up, bringing it to staff's attention too, because sometimes we get narrow vision of looking at these and thinking that they're, but talking with the planning commission gives us some of that, those gray areas that we could encounter, so.
Those are the two additions in here, and then in Article 12, it's really just the one.
Yes.
There was nothing else in, 16 right now.
Yes, this is, Article 16. Solar farm. Yeah. This is next on the list. Here's the definition for solar farms.
I'm fine with that. Does anybody have any questions about?
Are you crazy?
Definition? Yeah.
Everybody's a little crazy.
I'm fine with it.
Yeah.
Again, I don't know if it'll ever pop up, but at night, this might be nice to know.
So can I say something? We're so close to getting this to council.
Yeah.
Kind of, well, we don't know if it'll pop up, but it could. Data centers. Rural Georgia is just getting slammed right now. They love places with water. They love big land. And we have lots of, and it is creating absolute havoc in these rural towns. And they've discovered Georgia, so, we don't have, I looked and looked, we
data center, and we cool those data centers by collecting that heat is then reused in what they call district heat. So we provide free heat and cooling these data centers to neighborhoods, apartment complexes. So I want to say that I don't always see a data center as a bad thing, but I think there are opportunities if they are going to come here for us to flesh out a lot of what the opportunities are for something like that.
So I don't know, like, if this is where we would, you know, define them, talk about them, kind of set some guidelines for them, or if we just want to get this up to council because we've been working on it for so long and then tackle data centers. But I definitely think, you know, the community members, there's probably, of course, there's a lot of business aspects and economics and thing, and data centers will always argue that because the actual community, farmers, you know, it's like driving cows insane, like the noise can like make cows go nuts kind of thing. So there's a lot of downside to the community, of course, as well as economic. But I definitely think that we can be hit with that in the future at some point.
You guys wanna work on that under this round, or do you guys wanna maybe proceed and see if we get through the rest of this article to send up and then work on that separately?
I would suggest that that's a pretty big task that needs to be done separately.
I agree. Separate that one for later. Alright, moving on.
Good point.
So everybody's good with solar farm, solar energy, blah, blah, blah? You have one more campground now? Okay.
Just looking a little more closely, and as far as the road standards for campgrounds, it just says all weather standard for the roads. And I've been trying to figure out, has anyone else found, are there specifications for what all weather standards mean?
Gravel is most of the time.
Do we have depth?
I don't think it's mentioned in, we do not have a depth because of the fact that, this was brought up during the updates to the UDSO, where it just calls for, all-weather, surface for these roads, and therefore not making the, owners of these campgrounds have to do a certain, and then inspect those depths to make sure that they're still compliant with. So this is one way where we were able to propose some type of standard when it came to the roads in campgrounds, because we didn't have nothing prior to that. And then making sure that we had the width of these roads for emergency vehicles to get up. So I think there was some type of depth originally proposed, but I don't think that got approved. I think these standards were the only thing that got approved.
What is the standard on that ground as far as, because a number of years ago, we had a situation where they were gonna have some houses up on top, some of it was flat, some of it they came down, and it could be hazardous because a lot of them were up north and wanted to move into these, residential areas, and they had, ground, but the slopes were so great, they don't know how to drive on snow. So a lot of that was changed on that one particular part, to where the degree you had to be asphalt, concrete or asphalt.
I think that gets addressed during the development review process as well, because we bring Billy Gibson, who's the Director of Emergency Services, into our development review process, and he looks at the different grades of these parks. And then lets us know if he sees any issues from his standpoint when it comes to that. I think Billy Gibson is the one that weighed in on the width, the minimum travel width of these parks. And, that's where we got some of the standards that we currently have. But when it came to actually depth of the gravel or all-weather material, I don't think that was, I think that possibly could have been mentioned, trying to recollect what the discussions were, but having just these standards was a huge achievement when it came to the RV parks and campground standards.
Well, this was the same thing, we were had to have paid part of it, especially when they got up there where some of them were gonna have residential houses on it as well. So they had to pay that part when they got up, once they started coming down and going out another road, either in the county, they had to access different types of gravel. They had a hole, or they were coming down in a certain slope. But that was years ago, got weather come down a lot of it. They really got away, so.
Yeah, I think-
They still won't follow that same rule, which is written anywhere. I don't know, man.
I think Billy Gibson does look into the grades and the material, not only for the people that are actually staying at the RV parks and campgrounds, but also for emergency vehicles. Because if you have gravel and you have a too steep of a grade on some of these roads, he's not going to approve it or allow it to move forward.
Is there like a certain standard that Billy goes by, or does he just make a decision?
I think there is a standard of what the grade is
Yeah,
for.
I think there's a standard for that, whatever the grade is, it determines what type of.
Can we get a copy of what that is so we can review it?
Absolutely. I'll reach out to Billy, in the morning, request that information. You're welcome.
That would, that would satisfy my curiosity on it, just having seen some potholes happening with gravel, just trying to move forward, make sure it's big enough everywhere it needs to be.
Absolutely.
To your point, that's one of the reasons I like the word that's in there called weather road, because whatever you do today, 4 years from now, it's gonna have potholes, it's gonna settle, and that's life of a gravel road. But by saying an all-weather road, it maintains the responsibility on the campground or whatever to maintain that road.
So
So
when we
that
see those
means
potholes.
Fluffing gravel, going through and doing regrading, all those things that people do, it's their responsibility, and also to maintain that depth.
That makes sense.
Alright, so we're good with campground, we're good with solar farm, what are we moving on to next?
Did we,
Yeah, approve it.
Is this everything?
Campground, general, lodging, solar farms.
Yeah.
make a motion to approve the amendments and transmit to council?
All those in favor, please raise your hand. Approved.
Now we'll see what they do with it.
Okay, the next item on the list is new business. Discussion.
Look at me, I didn't know if you wanted to have some discussion today about the proposals that I sent forward. I really took a few minutes to draft that. You guys wanna talk about it now?
Yes.
It's fine.
Well, we can, and there's a couple other items that I think we can bring up as well.
Shrad, do you have Tripp's email that he sent to all of us?
I can search it.
Tripp, that was awesome, by the way.
Well, I
Like,
mean,
lot of work.
it's sort of work in process right now, but I mean, I think general concept right there is to kind of address a lot of concern that is going on, really along the lines of infrastructure review. And there's a couple of things that I think we can do, but I think as I started, I was really just thinking, hey, can we put some distinct numbers and figures into the requirements for some of those infrastructure reviews, so that when we get a development review, we would have yeah, the school district thinks this is okay, yeah, the traffic counts is fine, whatever, right? But it's an actual, okay, what are the numbers do we serve right now? What will the number of students served be at each one of the schools within the designated area? And then how does that fit into the school district's plan for long-term, infrastructure and stuff like that, right? So things like that was how I started this, and then I kind of, as I was thinking about how I've seen the process go poorly in the past, I think part one is just making sure that we get those defined, kind of fact-based assessments in there. So for, in the case of like sewer capacity, for example, what's typical is that you would get a letter from wherever sewage providing authority, and it would say, yeah, this is gonna be fine. Rather than, no, we expect this to generate 350 GPD for each residence, that means it's gonna be 150,000 GPD for the entire development. The capacity at the lift station, which we may or may not own right now, is 500,000 GPD. And we believe we can buy 150,000, we're gonna have to source it under or something like that, right? Those are the types of assessments that I would like to see rather than yes or predict, right? So I think it's gonna take a little bit of work, and it's probably gonna take a little bit more kind of review with a few people that have done some of these, and frankly with some of the like sanitation providers and stuff like that, to give us, okay, what do we need to be looking for? But I'd like to start using those kind of recommendations when we're talking to the developers. The other thing that it made me think of was within the application process, I would like to like sort of shortcut some of the discussion that we always end up having as a part of the land development review. Because it always seems like when the developer comes to us, they say, well, you know, the plans are mostly solid right now. It's like 80% plan, but we can't say for sure whether it's good. So I'd like to kind of, as a part of the application process, work with the developer and say, okay, look, the agreed upon, you know, number of residents in here is gonna be X, right? You guys shoot high so that we can have the right infrastructure review, we can have the right, and then if you end up being lower, great, we can all agree that lower is less of a problem than higher, right? But if we say, hey, the parcel's 350 acres, and it's capable of accommodating
6,000 houses.
yeah, call it 1,000 houses, right? Call it 1,000 houses. Then we can go in there and say, okay, based on, you know, some mass and data and a few other things, we can say, yeah, we all agree that this is gonna be 2,500 people, it's gonna be this many trips per day. And then I think the right thing too would be to have the developer before they ever even submit that application, say, okay, we know where it is. We know roughly this many trips per day, or this many residents is gonna be here. What are the areas on which we can all agree are reasonable to have the traffic study? Not, oh, here's your traffic study, right? Because that puts them in the driver's seat as far as, okay, well, the study area is really only X. It is, maybe it's not. You know?
So how do you, well, I mean, have you spoken with Chad or any other staff on how we're planning on implementing any of this, if we can?
Wrote up an email, fired it off.
Okay, alright, got it.
And I agree that this helps streamline the process, not only for us, but also for staff. Because if you guys see hard numbers coming on an application, not maybes, and we spend a lot of time in here talking hypothetically about how many kids a school can hold. It takes all that off the table, and you guys have real numbers to look at, go, hey, wait a minute, on this application, before we take that to council, the planning commission, we need to look at these things.
Right.
So I thought the school board always seemed to have a projected,
I talked to the school, in aspect of their letters that they send out, and they said they do project the issue that they, not really an issue that they see, but what they account for, when they send capacity right now, but this project isn't gonna be built out for multiple years down the road. So therefore, they're projecting out as well, like, in so many years, we might have a new school in this area, you know, that can help accommodate some of those residents, not, like, because it's not going to be built as soon as it gets land use approved.
Yeah, that's what I was saying, because the school board keeps up with that in the future. They don't just give it right now. Once they get the plan, and they look at the situation where it's gonna be built, they project out further as far as what's gonna be happening 5 years with that school. And, that's the only way they could possibly come up with any close figure.
The other
Could be
answer,
close enough to where you couldn't deny, a subdivision, with a certain number of people, that's what they go by, and then it's predicted down, maybe 5 years of that school. Because they may have to require to build another school. And that was one of the situations that we were talking about before. So they look at that pretty thorough in the future, not just for that one particular project, but it's more involved, say, 5 years from now, in the area where it is, so, that's a tough deal to just kind of pinpoint something like that.
And they might not have the information that you guys are wanting to have nailed down either about, faculty counts with the student ratio. They were expecting to have a lot more students from the apartment buildings that were behind Easley, and then they found out that they only had like a handful of students that actually went to school. Most of the people that were living in those apartment buildings behind the Easley Walmart were either young couples that didn't have children, or it was older couples that were sort of retiring, and they just wanted, they didn't have children. So they were surprised as well, when they, it didn't even affect them that much.
I think that one of the things that I was trying to do in here was just to say, look, based on the available data that we have, and there are plenty of sources out there, I listed a couple of them, you can go and say, look, if you build an apartment building in Middle America somewhere, here's the cross section of people you're gonna get. For every apartment dwelling unit you have, you're gonna have 2.1 residents and 1.2 kids or something. And you'll say, okay, guys, you're gonna have 200 dwelling units, you're gonna have 1.2 kids per dwelling unit, they're all gonna be elementary school aged. What's the impact? And then if it's not that, great. If it is, okay, account for it,
we've
right?
had a good go at seeing what it could be kind of thing.
Yeah.
Just in that one scenario, because a lot of this other stuff, such as, sewer capacity and traffic studies and et cetera, are a little bit more accurate or close to home to what we would really be honing in on here. So I think the school thing is like one small component to
Right.
a much bigger picture of us as a whole, just needing more information when we're looking at application. And I think that's just the thing that we run into time and time again, where we're sitting these hours for 4 or 5 meetings trying to come up with figuring out what we're being asked to approve. If we had more data and statistics in front of us, maybe it would help us just make a decision a little bit quicker, or have more information up front coming into the meeting to understand exactly what we're dealing with. And I think it's just more transparent for the public as well, to understand how these things work.
Yeah, I know for me, just coming into the meeting, what was really helpful is they had gotten the approval, I think it was the apartments that we voted on, and they had gotten approval for some water usage for 1 year. Well, I spend hours on those applications, reading through them, looking through and making sure that they match everything. And if we don't have, that approval, because they didn't have it, we didn't have it until we came in that night. For me, I think, even if we can just make it a habit of getting all of for the fire truck was the other thing, like that totally blindsided us as we walked in. And it was frustrating, because I had already spent hours of my own time reading and doing all this, whereas if that had been known up front, I could have saved myself 2 or 3 hours.
Well, the, key aspect about the fire truck, they scheduled a meeting with Billy Gibson the day of the planning commission meeting as well.
But how did that come about? Was it Billy that wanted it, or was it you guys, or was it them?
So during the pre-application meeting, that the fire truck was brought up during the pre-application meeting, that it would actually be something that they would be discussing during the development review process. You know, so, you know, to work out all the issues when it comes to during the development review process. So land use approval, and I'm not, you know, trying to say land use approval is the very first step. I've probably said this a lot of times and stuff like that, but it either, you know, is an appropriate location for this type of land use or it's not. And a lot of times these developers don't have all the information that they can present to the planning commission for, you know, that you guys are seeking. But what is required of them is what is actually on the application for that development and whether they meet the standards of the UDSO or not. That's why we try to make it clear during our staff review, you know, if it meets the UDSO or it doesn't meet the UDSO. And so therefore, I don't want the planning commission to, you know, which those are minimum standards.
Yeah.
The UDSO is the minimum standards per Pickens County. Planning commission can make conditional approvals as well. They can, you know, increase, decrease, you know, make some judgment calls. I don't think you can decrease, I think you can increase those standards if you guys see fit. But, a lot of times they, you know, just like the renderings of houses, you know, when you guys requested those, they didn't have them because they didn't have a builder lined up yet until they got land use approved.
But
Well,
they figured
it
it out
real
real
fast.
And, you know, it's one of those things too, you guys can make a condition of approval that they use those designs. But, you know, it's one of those things too, is like, once they get their development permit or their final plat approval, planning is done. Planning our standpoint, we're done. It then goes to the building codes department, and the building codes department just makes sure that they meet the standards of the state when it comes to inspecting those houses as well. So just trying to look from it from a planning staff standpoint of how can we enforce some of these conditions that the planning commission enforces on these, you know, because once it gets to a certain point, we fall off.
But we would have to have less conditions if we kind of move towards what Tripp's saying, right? Like, we wouldn't have to talk about so many conditions for every one if what Tripp's saying is we have a little bit more meat to.
Yeah, I think so. And I mean, like, I hear where you're coming from a land use perspective. Like, you're right, it's the first step in the process. And in a lot of cases, the developer's not gonna have, they have like an 80%. They have a decent idea how many dwellings they're gonna have. They gotta have a sketch plan in the neighborhood. They gotta have proposed routes.
And that's all
part of the application.
Yeah,
So I
dictated by the
think
UDSO as well.
the stuff that we have a hard time assessing is really the part of the land use that impacts infrastructure, that impacts everything else as well. So the use itself, the number of bonding units or whatever it is, may not be specifically a problem, but the impact to everybody trying to get on and off 123 might be, right? And that's where I think that's where I'm trying to ask more specific questions during this phase of the process, rather than let that sort of.
Well, that's something y'all need to, maybe look at a little bit more. He's talking about, rather than just wait to get here, that's like we did on that last project. A lot of that got changed, you know, they did what we asked them to do.
That is true. And, you know, we now require a traffic study when we never required it before unless it broke through a certain threshold. Now the planning commission can require a traffic study, you know, no matter what number of daily trips it generates. And so that's a huge improvement from what we were at prior to this. Now,
But what would that be? Would it be like an approval with a traffic study, and this traffic study has to say, yeah, it's good,
after the fact, if they receive land use approval or not. And that's what, you know, you guys may or may not see it from the staff standpoint, but we do have tons of steps after land use approval where we have a project right now, still going on 2 years, 3 years afterwards, and we still haven't given them final plat approval. So therefore, they're having to jump through a whole bunch of steps after they get land use approval. So even though it's not addressed up front with you guys, it will be addressed through the process.
But does that save you guys time if we have all that information and let's just say 3 years later, they still haven't gotten approval to build said plan? Should it have been denied? Is that why? And because this board didn't have enough information to deny it, the county's having to waste 3 years dealing with it?
I don't really see that being an issue from the standpoint of, you know, they're trying to get through the process as soon as possible. We have our own process. And as soon as they get these boxes checked, then they can get moved through the process faster. Sometimes these things from SCDOT, if they're needing encroachment permits from a different entity other than the county, it can take a lot longer. It can take months for them to follow what the SCDOT is requiring them to do. So having all that information up front before they even do an application, you know, I mean, it's sort of asking a lot from my standpoint. I'm not trying to justify the developers whatsoever. I'm just saying, you know, this is land use approval. If you guys deny it, they provide you all this information and, you know, paying a whole bunch of people a lot of money to do all these studies, and then it gets denied because you guys decide that it should not be approved for land use approval. So,
Isn't that their risk we take though?
No, if we've ever.
You cannot solve their problem.
I'm sorry, Mr. Watson, what did you say?
If we ever had it, well, we denied the land use.
Have we ever denied
Yeah.
land use? Yeah, we have.
I would make recommendations, but that was something in the process. But I don't remember.
the apartment buildings, the Rigid Perry got denied.
Well,
We
We've denied
I was
some
denied
stuff.
a use attached to a sketch plan that was presented from the Speedway because it wasn't really a plan.
Right.
yeah, it was. In that last episode, you know, we had to do right about, you know, you had to let speed to,
Yeah,
get out in the road safely, and they had to, you know, do it as an highway department. That was so.
I don't see it to where we're ever going to not want this information, at least for my remainder of however long I serve this board.
maybe for the purpose of furthering our discussion this evening, I did get a little bit, probably a little rambly in here, so I kind of combined a couple different things, so maybe I can take a few minutes and go back through this and kind of say, okay, these are the following things that I would put just specifically within the application process. These are the things, because there's some stuff in here, like an infrastructure fund and stuff like that, that really is a council, like, they're gonna have to buy in, they're gonna have to authorize it, they're gonna, like, that's, we can make recommendations, we can theoretically do capital improvement plan, that kind of thing, but we have to have a buy-in or something like that. So the application process, I think we have some pretty.
If you could narrow it down, for the application process, I would like to take the time to actually send it to the, different departments as well, and see how, and maybe even the school district, and see how it will affect them, and if they can actually
I mean, I'd love
provide
to
that.
work with them.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's all about being, you
Yeah.
know, progressive and actually making a, strategy to be able to have you guys more information, but also getting the input from the different entities that would be providing that information as well.
Well, getting that information into the public arena also,
Mhm.
people trust that that system is happening, it's being carried out in fact.
And I don't know if this is the right time to bring it up, but kind of my thought process with the last development, you know, he came in here, they came in here very like, oh, I'll tell you in 4 minutes, like, and this was drastically changing people's lives, this was drastically changing the face of Pickens County, we're talking roads, we're talking bridges, and it was just this, I'll give you this review in 4 minutes, and the expectation to be approved, point we talked about tabling it, and he said something about, well, 30 days is a lot of money. I would say that it's a project of a certain level that, you know, now we know, because we've all been through it ad nauseum, that the 60 days, we have 60 days to decide as a commission. And if we walk in here and we don't have all the information the day of, like, developers should not come into their first meeting and their public hearing, developers of that size, and assume that they're just gonna get an approval right then and there. We have 60 days, and that, the public hearing sets that off, and maybe the public might bring up things that we wanna know about. I just don't know that, kind of what, I think this is all coming together, that if we need information from them, just because they're here doesn't mean they necessarily get a vote that first day.
Which at that point, like, would that create some sort of system to where like, a certain number of density triggers to approvals? To readings?
I wouldn't wanna go down that route from the standpoint, if you guys don't have enough information and it's, makes sense for you guys not to take action on something, then I would suggest denying it, and not tabling it from the standpoint of tabling, from the attorney mentions that it does not stop the time frame. If you guys wind up not having a quorum after tabling an action item, or, action item, and we don't have a quorum, or we have a disaster, a natural disaster or something like that, we're not able to show up, and it allows them to have an approval from what was previously submitted.
Then I think the culture for us needs to be that, especially projects of that size, that a denial with an invitation to come and with all of these other pieces of information that we all seem to ask every single time, that is gonna be par for the course for this commission. And the best thing for developers to do before they come before us and before they come before the public is to have all of these things, because we're not gonna table it, and then look, we did table it, and that created a whole nother horrible situation. But if we had denied it, they came back with a whole other wonderful plan for the county, that the county ended up winning in that situation because we made them come back and give us more. So maybe not 2 readings, but maybe denying something of that size the first time isn't that big of a deal for them, and they need to recognize that. He was very adamant about not getting denied, and I don't know why.
Yeah, I think it was, to me, it seemed like a perception kind of thing.
Yeah.
We don't have any kind of reapplication box or anything, right?
We do not.
They have to pay again?
No, there is
There's
no
no
pay.
fees associated with pre-applying.
Right, so it needs to be like, this is not that big of a deal, we're happy you're here, we're happy you wanna build in Pickens, thank you so much, but we just need to have A, B, C, and D, can you reapply with that information? Not here, I'm gonna change the face of the county, give you 4 minutes and 0 information, and please don't deny me, just table me. That whole thing was just very, I felt like we were getting railroaded in that situation. And when we kind of started going down the road together as a commission to deny it, that's when he said, well, 30 days is a lot of money. That's not our problem. Come to the county with the information.
Well, I
Help
do
us.
believe that if you add some of these items to the application, I mean,
Okay.
all we can require of the applicant is to provide the information that is on the application and that it meets land use, the UD itself. You know, I don't want the planning commission to find themselves in a sticky situation for denying something that wasn't part of the application process or it wasn't a requirement of the applicant to provide that information. Because if you deny it off of some basis that wasn't a requirement for them, I don't want the county to find themselves in that situation.
Well, then that's why 2 readings would be necessary for bigger projects. It wouldn't force us to deny. For larger. That last one was big. It's the largest one the county had ever seen.
Since the moratorium.
Since the moratorium, yeah. So if we're afraid of denying because of something that we're not asking, projects of a certain size to have, 2 readings, I don't.
Well, if you did on that last one, they came back and they had an excellent presentation, because I've done that, design stuff and everything else. What it was, he met every condition that we asked of him, every condition. And it was tabled and held it to what it was supposed to be, and he gave every explanation and even made it better. And that wasn't to me a really big project as far as some of the others. We've had 2 or 3 together like that. But like when you're talking about having one and then making them come back and have another one just because it's a big project. If it's that big a project, they only just need to set it up for that big project that time, I think, instead of having tried to have 3 more along with one that's a really big project. You know, so I don't know if that's something you consider doing, if it's what you consider a big project. To me, that wasn't that big a project, it was really thought out the second time. They had a contractor this time that he mentioned their name and went through every aspect.
The second time,
Well, the second time, that's right, that was a perfect example of why, you know, we did the right thing, because it was not up to par, and he was saying that, this is all he could show. And there was a lot of drainage involved, there's a lot of preparation involved, and a lot more than just, you know, they made the road structure better and the whole entrance better.
I know, we did a great job not approving it.
We did approve it. We did approve it.
No, the first time.
It should have been not approved, because he
Right.
was messing up really bad, he just got stuck in that position as the engineer on the job, not the builder. And he got forced to do it, and I know he didn't want to do it, because I talked to him about it later, he didn't want to do it, but they did it. So,
Do what, come back the second time?
oh yeah, he knew he was gonna have to come back second time. Didn't want to.
So then what's the,
Well, that's why I'm just asking you, if there's gonna be a really bigger project than what we had, that one big project ought to be the only item on that list, if it's that big a project.
Oh, you're saying like from an agenda
Yeah,
perspective,
from
only
agenda.
have one.
oh, okay.
Yeah, cause it's not good to split
Mr.
them up,
Watson,
you know.
nobody
like that.
understood what you were trying to
Oh,
say.
okay, well,
Thank
a
you.
lot of people don't understand what I'm saying. So, anyway, as again,
Well, let me,
that was an excellent presentation the second time on that particular project. And you're talking about every big project, it's like you said, I think, you ought to have them come back again. So,
Can I make a counter proposal, instead of asking people to come back a second time, because I can see how that could cause some issues. What if we utilize the internal document again? What if we pick a number, if we can agree on one, of what we consider a application large enough to really want the answer to these questions that we all know we will not be approving on first reading without this information? Is it better to utilize an internal situation?
I would suggest yes.
yeah, it's just like the racetrack down there. That took, you know, that was a big project. And how many times did we look at that? And then how many times did they agree with us and change it to make it better? And that
You
was a
guys
big
can come up
project.
with some type of standard that you guys are looking for the application process, and we can let the applicants know, look, the planning commission is looking for these topics. Make sure that your presentation addresses these topics when you come present before the planning commission, and then therefore doesn't require the 2 readings.
Because I think that worked really well with campgrounds, because we had that concern with the campground that came before, and then we came up with the internal checklist that you used, and when we had those last 3 campgrounds come through, it's a whole lot easier, because they had
Yeah.
already done the things that were on the checklist.
They even had the fire stuff done.
And it didn't require us changing any ordinances or passing anything, it just was a checklist that was useful for everybody and made it more efficient for everyone.
Absolutely. And
Okay,
I'll
so what
definitely
we're
get a
searching
script
for
with
here
that information, and I'll send it out to the different organizations that would, you know, be addressing some of those answers and concerns, and we'll get that in the works.
So is that on trip?
I can take some of this, I can take what's in here that's not really application specific and kind of put it in a different.
We may have to do it 2 or 3 times.
Yeah, that's okay.
tabled, and they came, they had it, but when there were always room for the people to speak. And I know the second, when that came back the second time, I know that was the rule, but I don't think all the people understood that.
If we are, you guys want to address that, or?
Let's just do a quick recap and not,
Just so we're on the same page.
and not deep dive into it, please.
Sounds good. So the way that the planning staff read the ordinances and looked at the tabling, it's a continuation of the previous meeting. So therefore, when we had the agenda items that were presented at the, I think it was the, what was this, August?
11.
August 11th, we already had a public hearing for that agenda item. So the public hearing had been addressed and had been open to the public for that time. So when the planning commission decided to table the agenda item, therefore it was a continuance of that meeting. There was not a requirement to have another public hearing at that point in time because of the fact that we already had it. Now, it is the chair has the authority to open, this is his meeting, you know, he has the authority to open it up to public comment if he wishes. But I was just going from the standpoint of we already had public hearing, I didn't know, since we already had public hearing, that I could not open the public hearing back up. The public hearing had already been taken place, it was done, it was over, and we were going to present the information, hopefully have a shorter meeting than we did prior, because most of the information was addressed. And so that's why we did not open the public hearing again for the continuance of that. So,
But if it happens again, we can.
the chairman
Okay.
of the planning commission has the authority to, run the meeting however he sees fit.
I didn't know that. I didn't.
This is ultimately your meeting. And so, you can run this meeting whichever way you want.
I didn't know that. Because I haven't seen tabling maybe 3 times.
Right. Absolutely. This is new to us too, but when we were reading through the ordinance and we were reading through the bylaws, there was no reason to have the public hearing opened again and have further discussion on the agenda item since it was already addressed and took place.
Well, and that kind of brings, I touched on it last time. You and I would discuss this at length via email. And I had asked that commissioners be notified of what we kind of discovered and that we were all on the same page. And so that last meeting, all of us came to this table with a different understanding of what tabling was and whether or not the public was gonna be able to speak or not, because I kind of felt guilty because I felt like if I had CC'd everyone would have realized that. But I kept that between you and I.
Right.
And I thought that you would translate that to the rest of the commission, and that didn't happen. And so that's why that man was so angry, because he was told one thing and then he carried out another. So I don't know, it's,
Sometimes when I get email communications between me and another planning commissioners, I don't share that information because you could have questions about a particular subject that everybody else doesn't have questions on. And, I do not know that I should share that information or those questions with the rest of the planning commission members if they didn't have the same questions you did.
well, I mean, the attorney's doing that, so she may be setting a good example.
That is true. I mean, several planning commissioners have reached out to the county attorney with her interpretation of said ordinances.
And she's just saying, for the sake of transparency and that we're all on the same page, a commissioner asked, here's the answer. And if that had been done between you and I had done, we all would have been, Mr. Watson would have known what was coming.
And it's maybe worth, so people understand, as long as we don't have any bylaws that prevent it, we actually can add an item to an agenda, but it has to be voted upon by the entire, someone has to wanna just have comment or have discussion or something like that, because there's no vote that's actually going to occur. All we have to do is have an affirmative vote to add the item to the agenda.
We couldn't have added that agenda item the last time, because we were voting on it.
No, what we would have added would have been a public comment period. You see what I'm saying?
Oh, okay. So, moving forward, what is the, I emailed the attorney personally about,
Not to cut you off, I just wanna touch, cause I've had her email pulled up. She makes an interesting statement in here. She says, because the UDSO is silent on tabling, the planning commission must rely on Robert's rules version of tabling. So I guess my, follow-up question to that would be is, can we add our own, method of tabling to the UDSO if it's ever necessary, which, God, I hope it's not. But if it's ever necessary again, can we have our own structure for how that works for the board as a whole?
I would suggest doing that in bylaws and not in this.
Okay.
Do we maintain any actual bylaws?
Yeah. Keep this here. Not that one, the one that you should have gotten.
they were last done, I think in 2012, 2014, a long time. It's been a long time.
But I'll make sure if you don't have it readily available, I'll make sure you get an email copy of it.
It's like 2 pages, Trip, and it was in the, for you and I, it was in the pocket.
Okay, I'll look my stuff, but that would be great. With the council.
Yeah, I guess she's just figuring it would be in the UDSO. So we're clear on how the table works. Everybody got a copy of that. So is everybody comfortable with that for now? Okay. And then just because we are recapping on our last meeting and the questions that were sent to the attorney, it really would be super awesome if, from now on, when an applicant has an attorney, that we can have one.
Right.
And then you said that they didn't inform you in advance that they
No,
were
no,
gonna do
we
that,
did not
but
know
can we
that
add
there
that
was
to the list of internal questions that get asked?
Yes.
Just to prevent you from being blindsided as well.
Yeah, staff did not know that they were bringing legal, representation to the, August, September
Yeah.
planning commission meeting. If we would have known that, we would have brought it to our, I would have brought it to my
He's the
superiors.
county attorney anyway.
Well, that's the problem.
I mean, he can't just, if there was any questions, because when I was talking to him in the back, I knew, I knew attorney very well, and, the other guy I knew also too.
Well, as soon as we find out about that, we will ask that question. If we know that there's going to be legal representation at the planning commission meetings, we will notify our superiors and see if we can't make sure that we have legal representation.
Yeah, we've got a new attorney now,
Right.
and if she can't attend, then they can't sit in the meeting. If they're gonna
I don't know
have
if
an attorney.
I don't know how that runs. I'll have to run that by
I'm just
our.
asking the question like that, if they're gonna bring an attorney, do we have to use her, our attorney in Pickens County, like we should be, to come to that meeting?
I'm not exactly sure. I'll have to reach out and get some more advice on that topic.
Who
Whether,
do we contact as commissioners to make that request?
I will make that request after this meeting.
I wanna make sure that they understand how serious it is. That last situation was legally a problem on a lot of levels, and it put all of us in a very bad position. I told you this the night of, that's why I was so upset. So I wanna make it very clear that if they have an attorney, us as commissioners, we should also have one present to answer questions and to do things like write up any kind of language.
Well, in the past, applicants have brought legal representation and, we have not had legal representation not saying that you guys can't have legal representation, but it shouldn't change your opinion or change the way you guys vote on an application.
But I think it did last time.
Well, that was because it was tabled. That was a different situation. When I looked at it. Because we've been, I've been in situations before where, you know, they had an attorney, but we went through the process. And what was, there was no argument, he didn't come back with anything to clarify. They couldn't clarify that we didn't approve.
Well, I think that my proposal last time for us to deny it and ensure that all of the new information that was brought to us that night was put into an entire application for the protection of the county. I don't think that that was, an unusual request. I don't think that was an unreasonable request. Instead, what happened was, it was totally inappropriate for Les to write what we ultimately approved. Because he got up there when we started going down the road, and I felt like he strong-armed us by saying, well, this meets all the standards. This meets all the standards. And my concern is you brought us changes to an application the morning of that we didn't even get to read, and now we have your attorney writing it in for the county. So I do feel like Les being there was strong-arming us. It put us in a bad position, and now even our own attorney said that we allowed something inappropriate to go on.
I don't feel like he was strong-arming us in any way. I think we were struggling to come up with a motion, and he offered, because of his professional experience, a way to help craft that motion. He didn't make it, he didn't apply it, but he was helping us because we were struggling with verbiage for a motion.
That's right.
So
How
I didn't
to
feel strong
include-
on that. I just want to make that clear. I felt like he was
But you
actually
guys knew
assisting.
him and you felt comfortable. What if that was an attorney that none of us knew and trusted?
That had nothing to do
That
with
didn't
it.
have, to me, that didn't have anything to do with it, whether I knew him or fished with him or he bought property.
Well, we will have to disagree. I don't think that it was appropriate for us to do
And-
that.
and
And the attorney agreed that it was not appropriate.
I don't disagree that it was probably not appropriate to that, but I don't think the intention was anything ill or to gain advantage for that development. I think the intention was because we as a commission were struggling to come up with a motion. He was trying to simply help us move the.
Well, remember, the only reason we knew that we had to add all that information in is because I had done all that digging before. And I knew that if we had approved it with no conditions, it was approved on August 11th, and all those shiny objects that he brought to us, they would not have been legally bound.
The road,
Yes.
that was my question. That was my thing that I made them do.
It was.
No, I asked him, no, you don't understand what I'm saying. If we would have approved it with no conditions,
Well, we weren't gonna do that.
well, no.
I mean, that's hypothetical.
You see what I'm saying?
We weren't.
He didn't say that, that's why he came back.
We had to put in the motions that what they were giving to us on September 8th was what they would be legally bound to. And that's when he looked at me and I asked him that question. He said, that's a very good point. Because we were about to approve that without that being in, and we would have approved September.
No, I wasn't about to approve it. Not without the road.
That was
There
right
was-
there.
But we
Because-
had
because
to
when
put that motion in there and nobody knew that.
Yeah, we were trying to craft the motion when he stepped in and tried to give us the verbiage. I mean, if you went back and listened to the recording, you could hear all of us talking
Yeah.
about how we were trying to word the motion to
Oh, we have the
include
recording?
all
We
of
have
the
a
things.
recording?
Always a
Do we have a recording?
The meetings are supposed to be recorded.
So we have a recording of the last meeting?
Yeah, we should
Oh,
still
good.
have a recording of the last meeting. I don't know.
Sending statement minutes.
Yeah, oh, you guys aren't recording them anymore?
We're not required to have a recording, we are required to
I
take
thought we
minutes.
recorded all
I
of our
used to.
meetings, yeah.
When did that stop?
I used to record the meetings for the benefit of going back in and seeing the minutes.
We don't record our meetings
I mean, I'm recording.
with
For
just
my
written
personal
minutes,
use
but I
of
thought we
minutes,
had a tape recording as well.
We used to.
Because that was the whole reason that you and I had a conversation about not videoing our meetings, was the agreement was we would have our
What is
phones
required
recording.
for us is minutes
recording of the last meeting?
There is.
There is, okay, so that meeting, why was that meeting recorded, not this one?
I'm recording right now.
Oh, so you already, like, there's like an actual, like, oh, well, that's what I'm talking about.
She's taking her own recording, but we,
We don't have to post it anywhere.
Well, that's fine.
Oh, so
we
you still have
we
the
keep it on
recording from the last
file.
meeting?
I think I do.
Okay, so it's not technically recorded then? Or any of the meetings prior?
Like, we just don't keep like a running record, like they're not stored on a computer somewhere where you can go back and double check what was said.
we have all the minutes from every meeting that we have. That is what is required for us to have, is minutes from, planning commission meetings.
So okay, so how do we change that? Because that is making me extremely uncomfortable. That developer can come in and say A, B, and C was done. I mean,
We
this
have
is,
we have the actions that you guys approved in the action letters that the planning, we get the motions that the planning commission makes, and then we send a letter out saying this is the, and you guys vote on it. So how can they go back and say anything different?
why do all the municipalities report their planning commission meetings?
Majority of them.
Pickens does, I watch it live, and then they record it. You can go back on YouTube.
We can do it, we have, the technology.
Yeah, so why don't we do it?
We don't have, for one thing, we don't have the staffing to do that.
Who
And
does it for the county?
for another thing, it's not required. So,
But just because it's, I think where we're struggling is that there's a lot of things not required that as a commission, we are asking for. I don't know how else to put that. Just because it's required doesn't mean that it's not appropriate. So how do we get it required if that must happen, how do we get that required?
We have to make a motion and vote on it, correct? And then we can add it to the way that our meetings are conducted.
County council recorded.
that's another, I mean, that's
Yes,
another
it
thing
is.
that I will have to talk to the IT department, you know, because they would have to provide an additional person here at 11:15 at night to be here to help make sure that the recording is happening, especially on YouTube and some other sites.
So most
Yeah,
of the
there's-
time, our meetings fall on the same night as county council meetings, so they're having recordings of their meetings, so isn't that person most of the time already here?
Not that I know of, and if they are here, they're not, you know, because the recordings have to stop when they go into executive session. There's a man that, or a person that's actually managing that recording for the county council. And so therefore, that person has to make sure that they start, stop, you know,
Who does that for county council? Your IT department?
it's probably our communication engagement department
Okay.
does that.
Okay. Something to look into, maybe we,
I can look into it for you.
thank you.
And go from there.
So what I think what the commission's asking to feel comfortable is that if an applicant has an attorney, we also have an attorney, and that the meetings are recorded.
So what happens if our attorney cannot be present at our meeting? And we just don't meet?
No, then they don't bring their attorney.
Can't ask somebody not to have a
That's-
record.
Well, maybe we should, well,
I mean, if they wanna hire a lawyer, they can hire a lawyer. They can hire 20 lawyers.
so is it possible to not review something if they have to have an attorney present? Is there a way to say, okay, our attorney cannot be present tonight because X county meeting is happening and
It could be tabled.
God. Please table anything ever again.
Well, all I can say is that most of the time that we've had in the past, and there's an attorney with them, he only got asked a few questions that he had answered. And it has not been a problem in the past. So,
You don't think it's a problem, maybe you don't think it's a problem.
I don't, I guess I'm trying, because I wasn't here, I don't know that I know
But
I'm starting to hear the story, I guess
I
my
do-
concern though is.
I
If
do
you have a
understand
recording, you
though,
would know.
that if you want an attorney present, if they're gonna have an attorney present, I don't have a problem with that. So it's whatever everybody votes on and decides.
I think equal
But,
representation needs to be in the room, period. If we can't have that, then maybe we just don't review the agenda item. I don't think it's that difficult. I mean, if I'm being a diva and that's a difficult request, please let me know.
If no action is taken on an agenda item, then wouldn't that mean that it's automatically tabled?
I know, Trad, I don't like it, but what I'm saying is there has to be some sort of way to schedule to, okay, for example, during your application process, do you plan to bring an attorney? If you do, we have to
I can
schedule
ask
you
that
for
question.
X, Y, and Z dates, because we have to have an attorney present.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
I can ask them if they're going to bring legal representation, but if they don't tell me, can they bring legal representation without telling me that they're doing so? I don't think that it should dictate how the planning commission votes on a agenda.
I agree.
Just from the standpoint of them having a legal attorney there.
Nothing about land use review has anything to do with whether or not an attorney's present in the room when we review it. It's all
But I'm
serious.
still saying that we're missing the point, that's, I don't think anyone's understanding. We did not have an attorney here last time.
That was a different situation, though. That was a table situation. This is, we're talking now about not a table situation.
I'm talking about in general, the protection of the county, the protection of each of us board members, et cetera. We did not have a attorney there. We may want to approve something, and we may want to have conditions. What if we have their attorney sitting there telling us, you can't have those conditions, and we're all sitting here taking their word for it?
I don't think we would do that, no.
Yeah, that sounds like.
So then what, we would
No,
deny it?
that's that, yes.
Yes.
I would vote to deny it on the spot.
I'm gonna hold everybody's feet to the fire on that one then. I just think that it's,
That's just not how Jennifer and really kind of myself see how the last meeting went down.
That, to me, that was just a different situation. If I'd have known, I could have stopped that, I would have, but I didn't know.
I just would like to see representation, Trent, I don't know how you're gonna figure it out, but where there's a will, there's a way.
If I find out that there is legal representation going to be present at the planning commission meeting, I will reach out to the county attorney and see if that fits her schedule as well. You know, she is the county attorney, so if she
I get
has
it, I know
for
she's not just for
flipping schedule,
the planning commission, I understand that.
but I can request that, but from my standpoint, and it might not be the same as other people's standpoint, having legal representation here should not change the way that you guys vote on an agenda item from the standpoint of, does it meet the UDSO? Does it answer all those questions in Article 12 that you guys have to ask yourselves when it comes to an agenda item?
well, we needed one to write our conditions for us last time.
So, I mean, I think
It's that simple. We needed an attorney to write our conditions last time, and we did not have one. It is that black and white. I don't know what else I need to say about that. It doesn't matter if it was tabled, it doesn't matter if it wasn't. We needed an attorney to write those conditions that we approved for, and we did not have one, and we inappropriately used another one. So, I don't know how much simpler you can break it down.
You have a copy of those conditions? Conditions talking about that we have put on?
Yeah, we sent out an action letter to the developer with what was mentioned, or the motion that was approved that night. So,
We misused an attorney to do something that if we would have known, right? Like, this is a situation we could stop in the future. If we would have known that they were coming, we could have had our own attorney.
Would it have been any
come.
different if he was not an attorney?
yeah, I mean, I think.
Yeah, it would have been.
There
Say, I don't
Or-
differentiate, I don't think we should have used anybody on the application to help us do that normally. The fact that he was an attorney is really insignificant to where our process failed.
Well, we would have written it before. And
We weren't able to write it. We sat in here for 30 minutes
Yeah,
discussing it.
discussed it, that's right, couldn't get it
and
figured out.
that's why if an attorney had been here, we
Well, not
wouldn't have had that.
necessarily, I don't sometimes trust an attorney's opinion.
I think due to the way that we sometimes run these meetings a little bit more open discussion than maybe is required or is necessary, maybe is a better way to put it. You are at liberty when we are in discussion up here of how to formulate the motion to say respectfully, sir, it's not your time to talk. Right. We were having a discussion among the commissioners now. Thank you for your input. It's not your time to talk. We can do that. As to the group not being able to formulate the motion specifically, yeah, that's a problem. I mean, I guess we've all got to get better at learning how to make motions. I wasn't here. I don't know that I would have been able to.
No, I think you would have. I think you would have known what, yeah, I think you would have known the point I was trying to make.
Yeah.
But I wasn't legally jargony enough to be able to make sure that it was sealed tight for the county. I mean, this is for protection of the county and us as individuals.
Do you think that the motion that was created was not still tight for the county and for its
Yeah,
good?
yeah. If
Because I
we had had our own representation, I probably would have been more brave in asking for, can you make sure this is happening? Can you make sure this is happening? Because remember, what we were presented was presented to us that morning.
Right. But did it not address all the questions that the planning commission
I
had?
don't know, because I'm not an attorney. And the attorney wrote it, but if we had had an attorney here, they would have written it for us on our behalf.
You can't pull up that copy of that.
I don't wanna get into all that right now, if you don't mind, Mr. Watson, that's just.
And that's why I was asking, who do we need to go to, right, because you're not the ultimate decision maker on this topic. Who do we need to go to as commissioners to say, in order to help serve the county, and we're here to help serve the county and its residents and its taxpayers. And honestly, when we have a councilman, if they start getting phone calls, if Chris starts getting phone calls about 6 Mile Campground, he's gonna call me and ask what happened, what's going on. So we also, I feel like, are trying to protect the council as well. So who do we need to go to? Because I know you can't make that decision to say, we have concerns, we have examples now, firm examples, so we can't say, well, it's never happened before. Who do we go to say we have these concerns and how do we get it to work so that if they have representation, we also have representation? Is that the county council?
Give me time to discuss that, and I will get back with you with an answer. You're welcome.
So any other discussions?
We're gonna get an answer on the attorney question, we're gonna get an answer on recording our meetings. Didn't like that. And also what we were given from these lovely ladies in the room tonight, I guess deep dives into some other specifics, but
council does not have to go through me.
Okay.
Yeah, they should talk to Ken Roper about it.
Well, if he wants me to know about it and stuff
Yeah.
like that, but you guys are, you know,
Okay.
you guys are volunteers, you guys are appointed by the county council.
Yeah.
And so if they reach out to you guys individually, that's, you know, between you and them, and stuff like that, so.
So we'll read through
Sorry, yeah, what's
priorities.
the-
No, they're asking for three
Oh,
top
us to
priorities,
generate.
yeah, for us to
Uh-huh.
generate
Okay.
three top priorities that
This
the
is-
board sees with the UDO, with planning as a whole. What are hot topics, what are major issues, narrow that down from all of us, choose three, send it up to them for review. Whether it's something that has loopholes in it, needs to be fixed, needs to be added, et cetera.
So is it specifically in the context of the ordinance, or it's more in the planning
I don't know.
process?
I think we could go both routes with that. I would say more centered around the UDO is probably what they're looking for, if I have to speak on their behalf. But, I
I mean,
mean,
you are right now, because you're looking at the request.
yeah, right, so if I had to guess
Okay.
from the request, but I don't think it would be an issue if there was something outside of the UDO that we needed to make it a priority.
Like a process for infrastructure review?
Yeah, look at that.
Yeah.
You guys wanna form a workshop on that, or when would you guys like to address that?
Said it's the best.
Were they asking for 7 individual emails from us, or they wanted unified?
They want to unify three priorities, so it's, obviously we can't quorum email each other. Because, yeah, I guess we maybe need to do a workshop on it. I tried to get it on this agenda for this month.
Can it go on next month's agenda? Is that too far away?
Or is there a reason why we couldn't contact our county council person directly and say, here's what's on my plan?
That was the request that was given. If you guys don't want to do it, it's fine.
I don't,
Um,
either's fine.
Is there any way just to set it up as a workshop?
Yeah, we have to have 48 hours. Set it up as a workshop. So if you guys want to send me some dates that work with you,
That would be the best thing.
And then you guys can
Everybody
discuss it.
together.
Let's just do it right now. Let's knock it out. You know, everything.
we also need to come up with a training date for the SCAC training as well, or a date for that. Because I've had this guy sort of in limbo until I got a date from the planning commission when he can come by and address some of these questions.
wasn't he supposed to be at this one?
The SCAC,
Yeah.
I didn't schedule him for this meeting.
Are you looking at dates?
I think we should try to come up with a date and have a workshop.
Next Monday night is free. I don't know how quickly y'all are wanting next Monday is good for me.
It's not good before November 10th.
Do we have to have a forum for that? Okay. I'm not gonna be able to give a date tonight because of my husband's work schedule, so if I can't make it, sorry. I don't have any priorities. I know that you guys have been here longer, so you can.
One thing I would add to it is that we already know this. If it makes the list, great, if it doesn't, that's fine, whatever you guys. I will try to make whatever date we put together for a workshop, Mondays or,
It's
okay
just
with me.
such a
Yeah, but it's just-
specific one thing to work on. I know what yours is. Does anybody else have two priorities to add to the list that they want to see county council review? Off the top of your head,
Buffers and setbacks is always a priority for me for clearing buffers and setbacks.
so why don't you put buffers and setbacks together and email that to Trad and he can make that priority too? Is there a third priority? If not, I can come up with one.
Mine, I think, is Ronald Tripp's infrastructure,
Okay,
you know, information on infrastructure before we make these decisions.
okay.
Especially if there's the question about entrance and exits.
Okay. Give me like 24 hours, I'll come up with a third one. Okay. Is that okay, instead of doing a workshop, if we
is that like continuing education?
No, this is really just for someone from SEAC, since we were having so many questions about how the planning commission, if you guys had additional questions or tabling motion, just really subjects for him to talk to you guys and just get some clarification.
If you ask whoever, they would probably say, it's continuing.
I'm gonna ask him and see if that actually includes continuing education, but, also let me know individually what you guys would like to see included in that training, since he is actually going to come up with a custom training for our planning commission. I think that's pretty awesome from SKC.
Could we talk about bylaws with him? Is it that kind of stuff?
I'm not exactly sure, but I can get clarification on that if that's something that you'd like for me to request. If that's something that he, I mean, the benefit of him coming to Pickens County and talking with just our planning commission members is the fact that he's not using other material as well, like municipalities, counties, and other aspects. He can actually sort of customize this training for our needs. So I think that's very beneficial for everyone involved.
Thanks for doing that, Trent.
Alright, cool.
I was confused, I thought that was a continuing ed
I
class.
did send one out today about continuing education class, but the SEAC was more in line with the custom training.
Is there any other discussions? Need a motion, everybody raise their right hand.